Leeds. What is happening? Welcome to Series 6 of Working Hours, an oral history podcast about a place called Leeds, a time called now, and an activity called work. Working Hours aims to record 200 loiners, that's people from Leeds, over the first half of the most important decade in the history of the human species, and ask them about what they do all day and hear how they feel about it. My name is Simon, and this is all my fault. My mission here is to try to map out what my city, Leeds, a city that has declared a climate emergency, did during humanity's biggest emergency. On Working Hours, we hear how loiners have, are, and will be coping with our multiple and expanding crises during their day-to-day working hours. To tell this story, I need loiners like you, dear listener. I need people in Leeds or people from Leeds to come on this podcast and tell me about what they do all day and let me record how this decade affects us. Thank you for listening to this episode. What did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, when I was 6, I wanted to be a digger driver.
Ooh, that's a good one.
That is what I really wanted to do, which was really quite cool. But by the time I was 13, it had changed to marine biologist because I was desperate to swim with dolphins. I have driven a digger now. I've been to Diggerland, but I have still not swum with dolphins. So that's still on the bucket list.
Have you seen dolphins in the wild yet?
Just once, just once off the coast of Scotland, which was wonderful.
I've seen them in, saw them in Whitby last year. So you see them around Scarborough.
Oh, did you? Wow.
Yeah.
I've been up there loads, but I've never been fortunate enough to just time it right.
You will. I think it'll happen. Yeah.
I think so. And then from there I moved into physiotherapy. So quite different really to driving diggers and swimming with dolphins.
Yeah, I can't make any connections with it yet, but maybe I will as we go through the interview. So how long did you want to be a marine biologist for? Did you stay with that to sort of university level and then you went, physio?
No, I stayed with it into sort of A-levels, and I think it was my mum that steered me towards physio. She was a nurse before she retired, and she thought that marine biologist wasn't really a great career move, which is probably very niche. There was one university at the time that did it, so I guess that was her way of going, have something sensible to do, girl. Well, sensible in her eyes, I guess.
Well, I think it's one of those, I don't know any marine biologists, but I know physiotherapists, and you're doing biology kind of thing. It's that... But if you had been a marine biologist, then, I'm sure there's a marine biologist at the Leeds University, and also you'd be working all around the world, which you could do with physio, but it's like, it's that thing of, this is one of the reasons I asked this question, is because it's what's in your imaginary, isn't it, at that age, like, what are the jobs? And can I realistically do it?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? I've got a child who's currently got 4 careers that they'd really like to pursue. And they don't really all align, but they're just things she's interested in. And I'm sure her mind will change as she gets older. So,
and as well, we're all polymaths now, aren't we? We've all done multiple jobs, career. We've all worked in different sectors, most of us. And so they may well do all 4. They might combine them all into one new job that no one's ever thought of before.
Who knows? We'll watch this space.
You're listening to Series 6, Episode 33, and to my guest, Helen Underwood. This is another Squadcast recorded on the 19th of September, 2025. Hello, colleague. Helen Underwood is a former NHS Physio, first aid expert and an entrepreneurial mum on a mission. With over 20 years in healthcare, including time in children's ICU and other NHS departments, Helen has devoted her career to helping people. Now, as founder of Underwood Training, Helen is creating a ripple effect of empowerment by making first aid knowledge more accessible in businesses, schools and communities. Helen believes first aid should be general knowledge. She delivers simple, practical, context-specific first aid training and first aid for mental health training for individuals, groups, and teams. Her sessions are engaging and designed to build confidence, not just compliance. Helen believes that anyone, regardless of background or profession, can learn life-saving skills and that they should have the opportunity to do so. So much so that she's even created a virtual first aid course for parents and carers. Helen is smashing down barriers and dispelling myths around first aid to help more people in our communities feel ready to act when in an emergency. Before we start, a quick update from me. So I still need another half dozen people. Once we hit the 200 episode goal, there's a few things I want to do. But the most important change in terms of working hours is that any loiner can still have their very own episode of Working Hours, all about them. But it won't be free anymore unless you are unemployed. Once we hit 200 published episodes, then it will cost £77.77 for an in-person recording / audio only episode of Working Hours. Or if you'd prefer to also make your episode available on YouTube for even better SEO and to get even more content out of your episode, you can buy your very own video episode of Working Hours. You get the audio one thrown in as well. For £99.99, I'm basically just charging you at a massive discount still for the editing. What's more is that I'm also going to open Working Hours up to non-loiners. I can only do these recordings online and they will cost you £199.99. It'll cost you more as a non-loiner because I'm going to be purely making those episodes just to try and make some money. Right. Let's do this. Episode 188 of Working Hours with Helen Underwood. So I'm going to jump straight into the next question. So you mentioned physio, but let's see what the answer is. So what is it that you're doing now then?
Not physiotherapy. Okay. So I now teach first aid for a living. I have my own small first aid training company up here in Leeds, West Yorkshire. And I've been doing first aid training since about 2006, which is quite a while now. And I've got a fantastic background because of what I used to do in the hospitals. There's not a single topic that we teach that I haven't dealt with at some stage, whether it's rehabilitating people from trauma, from broken femurs, other broken bones and things, right through to working in paediatrics with things like meningococcal septicemia, which we kind of hope that you'll never ever see in your life. But there's nothing that we teach on a first aid course that I haven't had some involvement with. So I think it makes me quite unique in terms of being able to answer people's questions and, deal with the ins and outs that people have concerns about when they're actually undertaking training. Likewise, I'm teaching CPR, but I've actually done CPR. Thankfully, mine were in hospital, but I've trained a number of people now who've then had to go on and do it in the community. And many of them have come back and told me about fantastic outcomes where they've saved a life. And that's a real privilege to work with people and for them to gain that life-saving knowledge and make that real difference. So I absolutely love what I do now. Loads of variety, working with absolutely every age group and every sort of industry, which makes it quite hard to market really, but because you're kind of for everybody. But yeah, so that's how I've morphed into it.
In terms of delivery, who are you delivering to? Is it to just members of the public? Are you doing it specifically in corporate environments? Do you sort of whoever, you can kind of deliver training bespoke for whoever needs it? What's your approach?
The approach is to make the first aid training relevant to those that are on the course. So in the last 3 weeks, for example, I've been into a couple of corporates. I've been into big organisations such as Cast Theatre over at Doncaster, which was amazing fun because I was doing first aid at work with the duty managers, but we were tailoring the course to their environment. And they work with everything from families with young children right up to elderly people. They work with community groups who've got additional needs. So they need first aid that can cover all sorts of different situations. They've got catering. We did an extra bit on anaphylaxis because that's been an issue that's cropped up for people that do catering. So loads of really interesting things there. We work with Yorkshire Wildlife Trust. A lot of their volunteers and staff are out on reserves in remote places, so they need slightly different things on their first aid course with the outdoor bias to it. Yesterday I was at a primary school teaching all the staff after school had finished about asthma and anaphylaxis training for dealing with those medical emergencies. Next week on Saturday, I'm actually visiting a community project, and I'm going to be doing something on choking first aid for a group of parents, a community project, which is a free of charge thing. So we literally do work with absolutely anybody and everybody. Schools occasionally we go in and work with students, but we do a lot with staff, everything from a construction worker or a printer right through to sort of office workers and hotel people or restaurant owners. We literally do work with anybody.
So I'm going to say it now because otherwise I'll be thinking about it, but I don't know why this is, but anaphylactic is one of my favourite words. I just love the sound of it. But yeah, so I'll just throw that in there. I'll probably cut it out, but yeah.
It's like Miranda, isn't it? You know, the comedian, when she says bruise. It's a great word is bruise. It just reminds me of that as well.
It's the sound, there's certain sounds you're just like, oh, that's very satisfying.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's polysyllabic, so there's a few syllables in there, and it sort of goes up and down, and it's got the hard K in there, and like some good vowel sounds. So yeah, it just appeals to me. Odd.
Excellent.
So delivery wise, I mean, obviously you said 2006. Did you say you started? Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've been going for a while. I'm assuming there's more than just yourself. So sort of how big is the team at this point?
Well, it did just start with myself, and then I've now got a team of, technically there's 4 of us on payroll, but we have a 5th who regularly does bits for us, but they're in limited company, so we sort of buy them in, if that makes sense, on the legal front. So it's a small team, but it's a growing team. And yeah, hopefully we'll add to the team a little bit over the next couple of years, but it's got to be a right fit for the team. It's got to be someone who's got our sort of values and ethos, someone who's actually going to deliver the same quality training in the same way. And every member of our team does a lot in their local community with various different projects and things outside of work. We've all got that sort of mentality of helping people, which I think is really key if you're linking in anything to do with health care and learning life-saving first aid type stuff. And they've all got that lived experience of actually using first aid. So we've got a couple of team members who've done stuff with Cave Mountain Rescue, someone who's a first responder. We've got someone who's just retired as a resuscitation officer in the NHS, who's a nurse by background. And we've got somebody else who does a lot of work in outdoor sports bits and pieces, where you're using a lot of first aid in the sort of coaching capacity there as well. So we've all got experience and lived experience of having done stuff that relates to it. We're not just talking from a textbook. Yeah. We actually can teach with meaning.
Yeah. So I'm going to jump into the how did you get into it. Often with this, so I don't know how it comes across for the listener, but when I understand what you're doing, it's a matter of drawing out what someone's doing and then getting a sort of idea for myself of what that means, how you do it. You know, are you sitting at a chair all day, or are you out and about and doing something else? Sometimes more details will come through in the other questions. So I'm sure there'll be further things that we'll discuss as we go through those other bits. But yeah, so I want to go into the how did you get into it? And when people have their own businesses, I'm always interested in, was it a push into it? Were you pulled into it? What was the inspiration to kind of go solo? Did you have other influences in your life of people who had their own businesses and that was something that you could do? Or was it something that was like, you'd never thought about it and then you were like, oh, actually, I could do that, yeah.
It wasn't something I consciously thought about. I just kind of did, which is an interesting one. So I was in the NHS for a number of years, and I was working primarily in intensive care and paediatrics, so the really acute, very, very poorly people, and also with a lot of small children who are very poorly, which is quite hard emotionally as well. And I lost 15 children in a 10-week period, as in they died, who I was working closely with, when I worked at a children's hospital, which I shan't name because of GDPR. And sadly, when people are very sick, sometimes they just don't make it. And I didn't have any support. I didn't have any real support where I was living and from the team I was working with at the time. So I spat my dummy and I went and worked a ski season as a cook for 6 months. And when I came back, I locumed and I went back into physiotherapy. And again, I ended up working at the high end in the acute sickest of the sick people again, but up here in Leeds this time. And just the stress, the overload and the burnout, it just became too much. And so ultimately, I just actually decided that I'd had enough and I was going to do something different. And so I enrolled myself on a 12-month course in the west coast of Scotland, where I did outdoor pursuits instructor training, and I qualified to be a rock climbing instructor, a canoeing and kayaking instructor, someone that taught archery, all sorts of other exciting stuff. And while I was up in the wilds of Scotland, one of the assessors for one of the qualifications on the sports module said, "Helen, have you thought about first aid training with your background? All sports coaches must have first aid or their coaching ticket isn't valid." And we'd done as was then, a 4-day first aid at work course as part of our all our other qualifications to qualify our coach and validate our coaching qualifications. And I'd learnt a new head bandage. Everything else I actually knew because it was all transferable skills from my time in the NHS. And I was like, yeah, actually, I could teach this. So I came back down to Leeds, just was on the bank locuming, doing a little bit of outdoor instruction coaching work as well. It's all bit work. You're paid for the hours you do. So you might be coaching at the climbing wall for 4 hours over a 10-hour period, and you're just paid for those 4 hours, but you've no time to go anywhere. So it's not really great for paying the mortgage and the bills. And I enrolled myself on a first aid instructor training course and got qualified in that and started delivering first aid alongside the sports coaching. And then the HSE and Ofqual changed the rules. Well, it used to be HSE approved did first aid, but then you had to get a teaching qualification to keep teaching first aid. So then I had to get a teaching qualification, enroll on that and attain that. And then it moved from HSE approvals to Ofqual approval with more hoops to jump through. So I've jumped through all those hoops, and along the way I've met some other like-minded people and just started to gradually grow those that I'm working with. There's a couple of others who've recently retired. So we would have maybe been a little bit bigger if Brian hadn't recently retired, but he's staying in touch to help with internal verification and bits and pieces and things like that for us, which is fantastic. So yeah, it's just kind of been a morph in a natural direction, but I never actually planned it. It just kind of happened.
Let's talk about getting the business going. How easy was that start actually delivering, get your name out there? I mean, you've obviously, you've got the qualifications, you've got the experience, you've made some contacts, I guess, through the courses and through the other training that you're doing, but actually bringing that to market, as they would say, and getting people to come in and pay, how difficult was that to get the ball rolling on? Did you have an initial 1 or 2 clients that could help you setting up, or was it starting from scratch and just, was it going around handing out leaflets or lots of phone calls or just firing off lots of, posts? How did you start to build it?
Because of where I did the first aid trainer qualification through, sometimes they would be needing instructors to run courses for them. So sometimes they buy me in for a day or a couple of days to run a course. So that was a good start to get more sort of under my belt and get going a little bit with that. To start with, it very much was hand to mouth. So I was doing a mixture of the first aid instruction and the sports coaching alongside each other for a little while. I also, at the time, I hadn't yet met my now husband, so I was still single. So I had a lodger in my spare room to help pay bills as well. So it was very much hand to mouth. Then I got to know the amazing team at St Gemma's Hospice, who've actually got like a little training suite on the side of the hospice where they do a lot of academic lectures and things. And of course the hospice has the hospice shops, and the volunteers there would really benefit from having some first aid to cover them while they're working in the shops with members of the public. So very generously they let me use one of their seminar rooms to run an emergency first aid at work course in exchange for some places on the course for some of their hospice volunteer staff at the different shops, which was really brilliant because it didn't matter if I ran with low numbers. I didn't make a loss. I might not make much, but it enabled me to really start getting going. And I sort of started with a course each month in that arrangement, and gradually they could train staff at no real cost to them. But it just really helped me to sort of start building up clients and word of mouth and things like that. And then it was a little while after that before I actually got to the stage where I'd actually start renting a room permanently rather than just renting rooms if I was running a particular course. I also used to be an instructor for a youth group, and they had a hall that I could use at weekends when I was running the outdoor sports course, which was the other one that really started kicking things off, linking back to the year in Scotland, really, in that sort of area of market. So it did take quite a while to build up. So it probably took a good 3 years to really get that word of mouth out and really get it to the stage where I was pretty much doing first aid and doing very little on the side of sports coaching. But yeah.
Well, that's the kind of milestone. I mean, it's still the sort of, 50% fail in the first year and 95% fail in the first 3 years. So you've got past that hurdle, and then you're not golden, but that's the big achievement. You've cleared those big hurdles then, and hopefully by then you've seen enough people that you're starting to, like you say, build that reputation, and then build word of mouth, build that client base, and get called back to people who have brought you in before, and then reach new people as well. So I'm going to move to COVID next. We'll come back and revisit some of this stuff. So with the COVID question, I want to generally look at, again, feel free to talk about whatever you want to talk about within this, but I generally want to look at how your workload was as we went into lockdown. So it's generally 3 types there. It either goes off the scale, drops through the floor, or stays the same. And then coming out the other side, was there anything that changed permanently for your work? I mean, you can pick your point at which we came out of COVID, because there's no real end date there, is there? So
it was a bit of an interesting time, really, was COVID. Like many people, things suddenly just had to stop, and we just had to cancel a lot of things because, as I'm sure you're aware, most first aid is close proximity as you're busy rolling someone over and what have you. So it was really hard. And the team did get to go on furlough, but as a director, that doesn't really help you much. So it was a really tough time. But then as we sort of got the green light to start going back to training after first lockdown, there were an awful lot of things that we had to take into consideration because we still had to try and distance candidates, yet we had to assess that people could roll people over. We had to distance in the training room. And for quite some time, we were literally running at half capacity in terms of room size. It was very rare we could go up to 12 candidates to a trainer just to have the required 2 meters distance. And there was some very interesting work with the awarding organisations for certification on what we could and couldn't do in terms of signing off practicals and what was permitted and what wasn't. We even actually had a dive into video making ourselves, which was a new thing, because we couldn't actually demo on the candidates on the course to show them what to do. So there were some videos with me and my husband, or my trainer Andy and his wife, because we could not demo on each other because we were in different households. And, we had to demo or record everything we would need to demo to candidates and use those for some time. In terms of the longer term impact, it actually took us more than 4 years to come out of COVID, because we have a 3-year renewal cycle for most qualifications. And it was over a year after the first lockdown before we were anything like back towards normal numbers in a training room. And then on our 3-year renewal reminders, it was another 3 years after that before we started getting full cohorts to remind. So in terms of the sort of marketing and things and the people coming back through needing renewals and things, that had a massive impact on us and a bit of a hole in our people coming back through for quite a while, actually.
It sounds like an absolute nightmare. Right.
It was a mission.
Yeah. So how did you hang in there through that? You must have been tempted at points to be just like, I mean, I suppose there's the vocational element and that you believing in what you're doing, but like there must have been points during that where you're like, is this worth it? Is this realistic anymore? It must have been really difficult.
It was really difficult. I think sometimes I thought the logistics were just, almost on the borderline of unmanageable. But at the same time, there were some other things that came out of it that you wouldn't have thought of. Again, back to the amazing St Gemma's Hospice, who I probably will keep mentioning just because I've been working with them for so long and they're such an amazing organisation. But they have such a vulnerable client group, as everyone will know, that they just could not have people like myself going in to work with the staff to do their mandatory training. So they actually asked me, just as things were about to kick off, as there was just the signs of COVID, would I come in and would I film all the things, and would I create for them a virtual first aid course, resuscitation for healthcare professionals, for them to use with their staff on their rolling yearly updates. And they actually used it for 4 years. But I went in and I filmed with 2 senior nurses and 2 student doctors in full PPE, me back with the camera and on my tripod, my video camera, which is actually my mobile phone, everything directing, taking the mannequins and the training defibs and things in, sterilising, wiping everything, gloves on everything, windows wide open. And we just demoed and recorded absolutely everything. And then the bits that I teach where it wasn't a full-scale resus, so the anaphylaxis and the choking, someone else pressed the button on the camera and I'm in front recording. And then I had to learn to video edit and stitch together and create a whole virtual course. So there was some really exciting stuff that I really enjoyed doing that came out of it as well. And I think when people come back to you and they tell you the difference that the training has made to them and to those in their community, and you hear that lives have been saved or a big difference has been made and something wasn't such a terrible outcome because blood loss was stopped, for example, earlier rather than later, actually it's kind of worthwhile. So I don't think I ever completely thought about packing up. There were times that I thought the logistics would just pull your hair out, but I don't think I ever thought about quitting.
Yeah. I mean, I know, I remember hearing from people working in schools where you had this sort of, these ridiculous rules that weren't quite the government rules, but it was sort of like the institutional rules of don't wear your mask in the classroom, but wear it in the hallway sort of thing. And it's like, what are we doing here?
Absolutely.
So yeah, all of that frustration of you can't do this, but you can do this. And it's like, well, why is that safe and this isn't safe? It's one or, it's being safe all the time or not sort of thing. So yeah, I can appreciate how much frustration you would have had to go through a lot of the time. But like you say, that sort of thing of, and I bet a lot of the time it kind of came in when you were sort of, why am I doing this? And someone sort of says, oh, I've just, saved someone's life or something. And you're like, oh yeah, that's why I'm doing it. There was that kind of the experience.
Absolutely. And there were some things, there's real stipulations from higher up, from awarding bodies and things about what we can do in person and what we can do remotely. So as we came out of COVID for our 2-day paediatric course, we used to have 6 people day 1, 6 people day 2. And on day 3, we'd have the 12 online together. So our 2-day course became 2 days over 3 for them, but 3 days of trainer. So there were some things we did do to try and get around, situations where we could. And of course, some of the work we do is with healthcare professionals, doctors, dentists, nurses. And of course, they still needed their mandatory training as, those workers that are classed as essential workers. So we'd still have to go on, although I guess some of the team stayed on furlough longer than me. And it was also a bit of a battle with getting our small person classified as an essential worker child to get into school more than not. Because of what husband did, he counts as essential worker. And then it took us a bit of a argy-bargy to actually get our daughter covered to allow us to then be able to support those essential workers.
So you weren't counted?
It was a tough time.
You weren't counted as an essential?
Not initially. Right. Not on the first furlough, but after the first one, then yes.
Yeah. Yeah, because and especially like you say, you're delivering training that's mandatory of well, how am I not an essential worker if it's essential?
But in the first lockdown, we were also required to close completely. So yeah, it's a real interesting time.
Did you have a workspace? Do you have a workspace at home as well? Did you have somewhere that you could work when you did have to work? For your admin, because I would imagine sometimes, do you have an office space that you go to?
I do. It's at the bottom of the garden, which is fabulous because when it was in the house, but when my husband and I were not yet married and had met and we're starting to think about kids and things, I just needed to move work out the house. And it was the best thing I ever did because it gives that bit more balance. You lock the door and you close the door and you walk down the garden and you've parked stuff. But of course, the training doesn't happen here. The training happens at clients' premises or at the training room that we hire, which is our main training base. But yeah, so office things, there is a little bit of space at the bottom of the garden to hide,
So going back to delivery again, so I've done a couple of, the many things that I've done throughout my career, I've done a couple of first aid courses at various points, bits I can remember, bits I can't. years and years ago since I did the last one. So so I've got visions of you carrying around, like the CPR dummy and various other resources and stuff, and piling it all in the car and driving somewhere and lugging it all into a building and being in a room with however many people and, right, we're doing this and then we're doing this and read that handout. Is it very much like that, or have you got another way to do it? And do you have to, like, how much does the space matter? Can you kind of deliver it anywhere, or do you need to have kind of a specific room for it? You need a certain size. Like, what's that experience like?
The answer is it depends, which is never the straight answer. So if we're at the training room, we've got this lovely cupboard glory hole, so we don't have to lag any mannequins around at all. They're just there, which is marvellous. But if I'm going out to clients' venues, yes, it is amazing how much you can cram into a small car when you're taking umpteen mannequins, defib trainers, bandages, a whiteboard, a laptop, etc., etc. So sometimes it is like lugging. But yesterday I was at the school teaching asthma and anaphylaxis for the staff after the school day finished. And they said, oh, we're in the hall. And then I went, oh, it'd be helpful to connect to the IT. And they went, oh, we need lots of space. I said, not for asthma and anaphylaxis. You're not rolling around the floor today. No. They went, oh, let's go in the classroom and have the comfy chairs then, rather than be sat around the hall. I was like, yeah, fine. And just a classroom suffices for that. I've got a school who's a little bit further afield outside Yorkshire, want me to do some work with their lunchtime supervisors in some basic first aid. So it's about giving them confidence to deal with the minor injuries that are common in the playground, but also just to start first aid while they're getting a first aid of something a bit bigger. Yeah, so just to have that initial knowledge, but it's not assessed. To deliver training with them, I would have to charge them for a full day, and it would be a very long day because they're a good 3-hour drive away. I was like, well, actually, we can do this course on Zoom if you like. And they're like, really? I was like, yeah, I can do it with them on Zoom. I've got a couple of little video demos that I can share. I can do demos in front of the camera like I'm with you now. They can ask questions. We can interact. I can email across the handout. Actually, we can do that course via Zoom. I don't need to assess them on a mannequin. Yeah. It's not part of what's required. It's not an accredited qualification.
Yeah. So as you were saying all of that, so yeah, it's very, like you say, it depends. It's very bespoke, and it's what the client needs, and they're going to be different things. So, I mean, if someone was doing everything that you covered and everything that you offered, is that like full medical training of like, oh, there's going to be a year and you'll be able to do all sorts of things at the end of that? I mean, like,
there may be to be able to teach it and have that experience that we've got and have that knowledge that we've got. But actually, first aid is first aid. You know, if I'm going to teach you to stop a bleed, I'm going to teach you to stop a bleed. It doesn't matter if you're in the playground with your kid who's fallen over in the park, whether in the workplace or in the hospital. What do? You check there's nothing in the hole, you put something on it, you plug it, you put pressure on it, and then you stick a dressing on it. And if it looks dirty and you work outdoors, you think, do I need to check my tetanus status? And do I actually need to check in about that? But stopping a bleed is stopping a bleed. So it's about giving people the confidence to deal with things in their environments that they're going to be in. And it's about making sure it's relevant to them. You know, it's no point teaching a parent about, you know, major traumatic injuries and shock, because they're not going to deal with it. But they do need to be able to deal with a nosebleed and a cut and a graze.
Yeah.
You know? That's what they're going to get, or a bump with the head, because that's a very common one with small kids. So it's just about making it relevant and about making it real. And I think that's possibly where we differ from a lot of other first aid training organisations, because we're all about what you're likely to need and, you know, what's your environment, what's your situation, what's your context. Yeah,
because I remember, you know, like I say, on first aid courses that I've attended, where they're doing, you know, CPR for babies, where you're doing the finger compressions. And it's like, when am I ever going to use that or need that? I mean, you know, you never know, but the sort of, making it more relevant to what you're actually going to experience, of like, okay, in this workplace, you're using lots of buzz saws. So you might have limbs missing, or, you know, fingers or whatever. And it's like, so we'll deal with that. And also trips and slips and those kind of things, maybe some electrical sort of stuff. So yeah, it's making it, but also you can ask them as well, well, what are the injuries that you get? What are the most common things that kind of come up? So, yeah, and then you can tailor it around that. I mean,
Absolutely. Andy, who's one of our trainers, he's got this little poster he's made for us, which we put up in the training room next to a whiteboard as people come in. And it says, worst case scenario in your context. And what we just actually ask candidates is, what can you think of that you'd be like, oh, if this happens, what would I do with it? And we make sure we cover those. So if you are doing an accredited course, there will be a set syllabus and we will cover that syllabus because that's what we need to do. But we'll still try and give it context. So if you worked on a construction site, I'm not going to talk about, something that's happened on a flat office floor. But if you work on a flat office floor, I'm not going to talk about you falling off the scaffold. So it's just about making it relevant. I'll make you fall down a flight of stairs instead or something for your scenario, because it needs to be relatable. And if it's relatable, it makes more sense. And if it makes more sense, people are going to learn it.
I want to talk a little bit about the defibs as well. So obviously that, having done it years ago, that was not something we would ever have covered. And now, you see these machines around in lots of places. I don't know how much, but they're supposed to be for anyone can use it kind of thing. So what's that like to deliver, and how much of it do you have to do? And how worried are people about using them and using them wrong and so on?
Well, the great news is they really are for anybody to use. And one of my other hats that I wear is I'm a defib guardian for the local community defib. So I go along and check it every now and then and just log on the circuit database to Yorkshire Ambulance Service that it's rescue ready and good to go should it be needed. So, yeah, and it is, as you say, part of most first aid courses now as well. The really good news is defibs are very, very clever. Okay. When you open them up, there is one of two ways to turn them on. There's either a dirty, great big green button, or you open the lid. And you can't really get it wrong because that's obvious. And as soon as you turn it on, they talk to you and they tell you exactly what to do. Okay. Now, when you stick it on, it will actually analyse the casualty's heart rhythm. You know those little blippy things you get on the ECG monitor on Casualty and Holby and all those TV dramas? It analyses what the heart's electrical rhythm is doing. It is so clever. It will only let you shock or deliver a shock through it to somebody whose heart needs it. It will not let you deliver a shock to somebody who has just fainted. You cannot do it. It is very hard to get it wrong. Okay. They're incredibly easy to use. There is a lot of people have a lot of sort of anxiety around them when they've not met them before. But the overwhelming thing that we find on training courses is people are surprised at how simple and easy they are to use. Now, in the training room, we just use ones with regular batteries in. They're just lights and noises. They're not going to shock anybody accidentally. And that's partly not to waste huge resources and big amounts of electricity. And also so that no one accidentally electrocutes somebody that doesn't need it on a training course and creates us loads of paperwork. But they are really, really simple and easy to use. And I've got a great video actually on my website. There's a blog area which includes videos, and there's just a how to use an AED video that I just made at a health and safety day for a big corporate a few years ago. And they had a load of staff that couldn't make the little info sessions. They said, can we video? And I went, go for it. So we did. And I'm sure there's lots more I could put out on the website and through the YouTube channel and things, if only I have more hours in the day to do it and to create it. But they are very, very simple to use, and it's very hard to go wrong.
Is there anything else you want to add on COVID before I move us on?
I don't think so.
We can always come, if it comes up again, we can always come back to whatever. So, because I think that's a good link to go into social media and sort of going back to you filming that course. I mean, obviously you will have been doing social media posts before then, because it's been around, I guess, it started to take off when you were building the business. So I don't know when you kind of decided you needed to be on there or jump on the bandwagon with it. But I get the feeling that experience of filming the course for St. Gemma's was a bit of a, did you catch the bug for sort of filming and videoing things from that? I get that sense from you.
A little bit, I guess. It gave me a whole new skill set and a vertical learning curve for tech. And I'm still learning because there is just so much stuff to do with tech. It's just unreal. And I did create a virtual first aid refresher because one of the high schools was really after that after COVID. And it's got a lot of COVID references in it. So it's one of the things I've been thinking I maybe should look at updating when I've got a window of time. So it's not quite so COVID heavy with extra things to do. But one of the things that I have done is I've created a sports injury module designed to add to the one-day course for things like, you know, your instructors that do your physical sort of stuff, your personal trainer type people and things like that, dance tutors and the like love it as well. And then just recently launched a few months ago is First Aid for Parents, which is a virtual course that I've created to massively try and get first aid knowledge out there into our communities. And that came about for a number of reasons. One of them was that I've got a really good friend or couple who sadly their baby had a couple of floppy blue episodes, blue lighted into hospital. And they asked me, would I go and teach them CPR when they'd just been released home from hospital? And I looked at my husband and said, can I go tonight? And 3 days later, they had to use it. They had to give the baby 3 rescue breaths, and she's still here and well into primary school now, so quite a few years on. And I always think, but what if I hadn't gone? But what if I hadn't gone round? Would she still be here?
But you did.
But I did. But what if I hadn't? And that's quite a scary thought. Then there was a mum at my daughter's school who had a baby and was incredibly anxious because her baby had also done one of these lovely floppy blue episodes. And she was just really anxious being with the baby at all. And I just went, I'm bringing a baby mannequin round and we're going to go through some stuff. And we went through baby CPR and baby choking. And then she just had utter confidence. She was absolutely fine around the baby. She wasn't in bits. You know, honestly, she could have been on the cusp of postnatal depression with the anxiety levels and things that were happening. But she's just amazing. And then a really good friend of mine does a lot of work in a forest school at Meanwood Valley Urban Farm, Silverwood Adventures, Sarah Ackroyd. And she's got a massive community of families who, many of them, they've just not had the opportunity to have that first aid knowledge and stuff. And it's different when it's your own kids. It's very different to workplace first aid when they're tiny. So that's where First Aid for Parents has come from. And I've called it Big Sick, Little Sick. Is it a big thing? I need some help. Is it a little thing? I can patch them up. I can carry on. Mummy, daddy, cuddle, sort them out. So that's a thing that I'm really excited by and that I'm really starting to just start to push and start to get out there. And I was really excited when Yorkshire Evening Post picked up the launch of it as well last year and did a little feature on it, which was really nice as well. But I haven't got my social media quite right about it, but that is the next big thing to push, I think. Just getting that knowledge out into our communities. And would it be amazing if everybody knew some first aid? Because actually, if any of us are in need, there's always going to be somebody that can help. And that's the dream, really, is to get that first aid knowledge out into the wider communities so that actually, you know, everybody's just got that help when they need it and they're not, you know, at a disadvantage.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with that. I mean, I think you should teach more health in school, like general health and well-being stuff, you know, in the same way that you used to have home economics and so on. It's like life skills and health and well-being stuff at that age would just be so useful and so good socially, like could do so much help. But there's always that worry, isn't there? It's that there's like the assumption that people are stupid or they feel that they're stupid and they might mess it up and they don't have the confidence or they misremember it and all that kind of stuff. But it's like refreshers, it's like with anything else. It's like update your skills, but also having that knowledge is really useful. So I'm going to let you respond to that.
It is really useful and actually is part of the PHSE, which is the Physical Health and Social, whatever it is, curriculum thingy. PHSE, I should know
education.
That. But it might be education, physical, social, health education. That might be PHSE. We'll have to look up PHSE again, won't we? But it is a white paper to do with that. And actually first aid is part of it. CPR is part of it for secondary schools and some more basic stuff for primary schools. Problem is that became part of the white paper in January 2020. COVID hit in March 2020, and there's never really been any comeback from the government that I'm aware of to actually put any funding into schools or any real resources to equip teachers to actually be able to resource these things. So we're really lucky, and I feel very privileged that a handful of our local schools actually invite us in to do stuff with pupils. So there's one secondary school I've gone into for the last 4 years, and every year I have year 8. And every year in year 8, I teach them CPR, recovery position, defib, and if we've got time, choking. Bearing in mind, I've got them for an hour and 10 minutes and then I get the next class. But the kids absolutely love it. And again, it's back to context, isn't it? Because I always start with, right, you're at a party, your mate's drink's been spiked and they collapse. What are you going to do? The jaws drop. And they've got their context, and we have a fantastic session, and they ask the most interesting and pertinent questions, and they're really interested. And they're less funny about taking clothes off to put defib pads on than most adults are on courses, and they're just really up for frank and open discussions, and it's a real privilege to work with them. And then there's another school I go in with the primary year every year, year 3-4 age group, and one of their mums got in touch, actually one of the pupils, 2 years after their son trained with me, to tell me that as a direct result of the training, he'd gone and joined St John's Cadets, and then he'd actually been helping do first aid event cover at big events with them as a result 2 years later of just having done that one day of having that input. I mean, who knows, maybe he'll go on and be a paramedic or something, or a doctor. You never know what you've inspired. So I really do think we should be doing a lot more of this in our schools. But equally, I think schools need the support to be able to teach it.
Yeah. And the teachers, like you say, I mean, you're going in, you're teaching staff and so on, and it's that confidence and sort of, and it's like with a learning thing, it's like learning inspires further learning. And especially if it's something that gives you confidence as well, something that you understand, you've got it, and you're like, I can do this. And then you've got the confidence to go and push your skills further. So often the scholastic experience is kind of like, you're not good enough, you're not up to speed, you're not doing this. So it discourages that confidence and sort of holds people back. And I know this was from a TED talk or something, it was like, a lot of the time the learning is about what holds people up is they get stuck on a specific concept that they don't understand, like something's missing in their understanding and they don't get quite that thing. But once they've got that thing, they can actually catch up quite fast and sort of, go through it. So it's never really a matter of being stupid. It's a matter of not having the information and the conceptual, the concepts, basically. You haven't got the relevant concepts that add together to make that concept make sense for you so you can understand it and then start building upon that. Again, I'll let you respond to that if you want to say anything back to that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's spot on. And there's that lovely training acronym. Have you heard of KISS? No. Keep it simple, yes. Stupid. Yeah. And, first aid isn't rocket science. I'm not teaching, and the team aren't teaching people to become mini medics. We're not teaching you to become doctors, prescribers. When we're talking about first aid for mental health, we're not teaching you to become counsellors or psychiatrists. We're teaching you to be first aiders. We're teaching you to be that first immediate bit of input, bit of care, and then you pass it on if it's big. And that's what first aid is. It's first immediate stuff you do, and it should be common knowledge. But it isn't common knowledge. And this is what our mission is to get that knowledge out there into our communities.
Yeah. All right. Let's have a quick break. I'm going to take another sip of drink.
Snap.
So.
And that's very drinkable now.
So we'll probably go through these next couple of questions quite fast. And then what I want to do is, I mean, I might take us on detours as we go through it.
I love a good detour. It's great.
And feel free to divert us off into anything as well. But yeah, so I'll try and whiz through these and then try and pull some more stuff out because I want to have a natter to you as well about, your obvious interest in outdoor pursuits. So, and I want to also flag, listen to the latest episode. I think you'll really enjoy the one that just came out yesterday.
Brilliant.
So Yeah. So next question I'll do Brexit first, and then I'll do climate change. So has Brexit changed anything for you work-wise?
Very little, because we're delivering UK qualifications to comply with UK health and safety law. The only possible thing really is in terms of some of the consumable costs for training equipment might have gone up a little bit, but it probably would have gone up anyway. So
Yeah.
not
Everything
really.
else has. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Climate change. Does
Yes.
this affect your work, and also is it part of the design of your work? So I will add a little caveat in here. I mean, with things being hotter and wetter, are there any impacts in that? I'm thinking immediately of heat stroke. Like, do you do anything in
Yes.
terms of people who are overheating and how to deliver first aid for that? I can't think of anything with it raining too much, apart from, I mean, you're not going to be, well,
Floods.
yeah, I mean, floods, but I mean, what are the kind of, I suppose, potential drownings, or I don't know, but yeah, I'll let you answer the question.
Yeah, well, we do deliver first aid information about learning how to deal with heat stroke and also hypothermia as well, if you get a really snowy spell as well. And actually, the weather has had a bit of an impact on what we deliver as well. Back in 6th of May 2024, there was a big flood in Meanwood in Leeds, and it took out part of Meanwood Valley Urban Farm, which is where our training base is located. And we had to postpone a course because it was flooded, which was great fun to rearrange 12 people from 12 different businesses and let them know at 9 o'clock at night not to come tomorrow because the floodwaters are up over the bridge. Hopefully that won't be happening again anytime soon. And then in terms of the heat, we've had some really hot days this summer. And with the way that courses are structured, often CPR is taught in the afternoon when you're on full day courses. And that's really not great when it's really hot, because it is actually really quite physical. So we've been playing with and what I call flipping our syllabus to bring CPR forward earlier in the day, particularly when the weather's warmer, and looking at the way that we structure courses for that way. And it's been an odd course where actually we've gone out and we've sat under the trees in the woodland because it's shadier and cooler than the training room. We've also invested in heat reflecting blinds in the training room as well to keep the temperature at a better level for us as well. So there has been quite a few little bits and pieces that actually it has impacted. For the outdoor incident management first aid course, the sort of sports course as it were, that's the course that validates all the different sports coaching qualifications, including things like canoeing, kayaking. So it actually already contains modules to deal with CPR for drowning casualties, hypothermia immersion from water, things around drowning. So we actually do already teach things on those topics that do link with climate change. But yeah, it is becoming more of an issue. I think especially heat exhaustion before you get to heat stroke, when people don't realise that they're already getting quite dehydrated and the electrolyte balance is starting to go off, which is how Lucozade Sport made millions, and we all wish we'd invented it. So that's where it's at. But there are other ways of making it without putting more money into their coffers. So yeah, so I think it does affect us a bit.
I mean, do you deliver UK wide, or are you mostly regional? Are you mostly Leeds based?
We're mostly Yorkshire based. I have occasionally been further afield, but usually for something a little bit more specialist. So I've been to Northern Ireland and up to Newcastle and a few other random places. But that's when I was doing a lot of first aid for dance professionals, which is basically the emergency first aid at work course with an extra bit bolted on. And it was very exciting to go and visit the Giant's Causeway on my 3 days over there and, get paid for a ferry and go see a different bit of the world.
Yeah.
So
I went to Belfast a few years back. Were you in Belfast for it?
yeah,
It's a great city.
that's lovely.
Okay, in terms of, I mean, the materials and stuff, is that part of the materials? Do you discuss this sort of, going forward, this might be something that you have to deal with more, or is that kind of, it's just part of the delivery and you just, because for a lot of people with the climate change stuff, they make it part of the design of what they're doing and how they're delivering. And, for a lot of people, it kind of runs through everything they do. For other people, it's more a sort of, I'm trying to do all this other stuff. And, oh, yeah, climate change, I might throw some of that in as well. So where do you sit on that? It's not like a judgment or anything. It's just a sort of like, how does that occur in the work?
It's an interesting question because it's not something I've really thought about before. But because these topics are part of the required syllabus from the Ofqual awarding bodies and the HSE and from early years foundation stage for the various qualifications, we've had to cover the information anyway. It's just maybe the context is changing a little bit for some people. So you're more likely to see this because is maybe something that's cropped up, particularly when you're talking about the heat injuries as well. I mean, we've had a lot less snow days than I remember as a kid. But again, I've still had the odd day where we've had cancellations at no notice from clients because of snow, and they've got staff that can't easily get in. And so they've postponed their first aid training with us for that reason. So I think weather in general is always going to be an issue. So yeah, sometimes more discussions about context, but I don't think it massively changes what we deliver, and it's not how we're marketing, because we're marketing more about just general first aid and simple skills that save lives. And it's just one of many skills is having that understanding.
I mean, I'm thinking as well, we said heat and water, but high winds, fires, there's more summer fires and so on. So there could be, potential risk of more people being trapped in fires and burns and so on. So, yeah, it's a complex area, obviously, but that's, like you say, it's something that you're already dealing with and something that you're thinking about and already delivering for, and the delivery, because it's that first aid thing, you're always teaching something useful that people can apply. So, yeah. Again, I'll let you respond if you need to respond to any of that.
I don't think there's a lot more to say, really. I mean, all the different extra topics that you just mentioned there, such as burns, for example, we already teach that. We'll be dealing with the high wind stuff of the outdoor course, which is the outdoor environment type thing. Then it's already in consideration. And the outdoor scenarios is invariably a cold, wet, windy day. And you may or may not be interested. But some years ago, I was running with one of our trainers a course at a high school for teachers that teach Duke of Edinburgh and take students out on Duke of Edinburgh trips. And we had absolute inclement weather, and they were literally forgetting to hold on to kit, and it was going loose in the wind and racing across the field trying to catch it. And it was really quite hilarious to watch, but we told them hang on to your kit, and they really learned. You need to hang on to your kit. So, it will always have an impact.
I mean, that's always been the case as well, though, hasn't it? I mean, if you're doing anything outside in Yorkshire, you're going to have days where you're going to be blown around. It's going to be freezing. You're going to be
Absolutely.
And I think as well, you mentioning the snow and having fewer snow days, I think that's going to become a higher risk, because it's the kind of thing, I can totally imagine this country becoming more and more blasé about it. And then it snows really badly one time and loads of people are get caught out of it, get caught out, totally, take it as nothing and end up, nearly killing themselves. And because I know in certain places in the world, people will get drunk and they'll walk home in terrible snowy conditions, and then that's it, because you've taken it for granted. And it's that sort of not thinking about, because it's just weather, isn't it? Oh, it's just weather, don't be soft. But it's no, this is why we live in houses, because the weather can kill you.
Absolutely. And hypothermia does kill regularly, so it's a huge issue. But it's back to education, isn't it?
Yeah. And being prepared, and also being realistic about what you're facing, and sort of this is actually, I need to get out of this. This is dangerous. I need to go somewhere safe. So, social media, Brexit, climate change, we've done most of those change questions. So I'll jump into the change question. So if you could change any three things about your work, you can be pragmatic here, or you can be very fantastical about it, whatever you want to say on this one. If you could change any three things about your work, what would you change?
This was a really interesting question to think about, and I struggled with this a little bit. And I think I would love to get a bit more knowledge and use more tech and more AI and more things to my advantage to free up more time. That would be one thing. And that's just really a having time to go out and learn how to use it type stuff thing, I guess. Just more free time would mean there's more projects, more things I could get involved in. And I've got so many ideas of things to do, but I've just not got enough hours in the day to actually fulfill them all. I guess that's the truth of many business owners, actually. So, yeah, maybe a bit more automation and a bit more digital something or other to help speed that up. We've gone a little way towards that in the last year because in January 2024, we got a booking system live on our website, which has automated a lot of the booking processes for open courses. And that's freed up a lot of admin time and streamlined a lot of things and automatically sending out reminders and stuff. So, but I'm sure there's other areas and other things that we could look at. It's just working out what they are and how best to organise that. So that's probably the first thing. The next thing is probably, I would love personally just to have a 4-day week. I would love to do that, to have a day where I wasn't boss and I wasn't mum and I could just go off and do stuff for me. But I know that that's a way of happening because I tend very much to really ramp down how much I'm working over school holidays because of childcare, which is a real privilege that I'm able to do that. And it means I get to spend time with my small person while she's still small enough to want to spend time with mum. But it does mean that I feel like I put the business on a kind of a bit of the brakes on development and stuff for a few weeks on a regular basis, and having just had the long summer holiday. So yeah, I don't think I can go down to a 4-day week while that's still happening. I just don't think it's realistic. Something's got to give. So at the moment, I've got to do a 5-day week in term time, I feel. But it doesn't stop me having an odd couple of hours here or there to do something fun. So that's all right. And then I guess just some knowledge and some time again to try and work out some places to get some funding so that maybe we could get some of what we do funded. So, for example, the first aid for parents, getting stuff out in the community. If I could actually get some funding from some big corporates to be able to take that to places like the Getaway Girls charity that work with, young mums and places like that. And if it could just be, I could go into there and actually do maybe some face-to-face work with them and then give them the virtual course to then go through at their own pace and things like that. I would love to be able to explore some more ways that we could support community organisations in that way. But because I've got to pay for the tech, I can't just keep giving it away.
Yeah, well,
that's the hard side.
Yeah, that's always the challenge, isn't it? I mean, I guessed earlier this week, and she's a health coach, and she did a lot in clinical research previously. And we were discussing, when you're working in the NHS, because you're trying to create the greatest value for the public purse, you have to deliver at that level of like bang, 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 like keep it going, next one, next one, next one, next one. And really, that's not how, I mean, it makes sense, but it's not really how it should be delivered, because whereas in a way, first aid is kind of, right, get this sorted, get it done, like you need to know how to do it, need to know how to do that. But also because you're training and teaching, you need to make sure that people understand what they're doing, that they feel confident, and that you give them the time for it. So there's that push and pull again of like doing more, but doing better. Do you understand what I'm getting at there? Of like, I do, yeah. I need to do more, and I need to do it at a bigger level, but also I need to take my time and make sure that it's delivered at the best quality I can deliver it at. And it's
100%.
And as well, this sort of, you talked about there, that tension between, working in the business and working on the business. I haven't really talked to you about how you like to sort of manage your time. So I get the impression that you're quite considered. So correct me if I'm wrong here. You're quite considered, you're quite organized in terms of like, right, this time I will be doing this. I've got to do that at that time. And you're very like, I feel like you're on it with the time management. Is that the case? Or am I like falling for a good impression?
I think I'm probably giving you a really good illusion that I'm on it. When it comes to actually being at a course on a course delivery or something like that, and where I need to be when I'm meant to be, I'm on it. When it comes to all the other things that come on the business and all the back office stuff, that ever-growing mile-long to-do list and the accounts and all the other stuff, I'm often just firefighting and juggling and not on it at all. And possibly that's partly my dyslexia and just the way that my brain is slightly chaotic. Partly it's possibly I'm trying to do too many things at once, as many business owners do. And, I've got an amazing person I can delegate a lot of admin stuff to, but there's some things that I just can't delegate. And so the book stops here. So, yeah, there's a whole load of other stuff that I do that maybe isn't obvious to a lot of people. So we we always offer to everyone that we've trained that if they've dealt with something first aid wise and they want to come back because they need a chat about it because they're doing sort of brain loopy loops and things, because you can get PTSD doing first aid, believe it or not, that actually we're here. And I probably average between 10 and 12 people a year get back in touch in some way after having trained with us. And then at other times, people just come back for the refresher and just casually drop in that they've had to do first aid. And this week I found out that someone on a recall had saved one life with CPR and another one with a full blockage choking on a grape. And last week I found out that another candidate had used an EpiPen for anaphylaxis in anger. Quote, I just went for it because that's what you taught me and it was fine and it worked. I had the confidence to do it because you taught me what to do. I just did what you trained. And they've both saved lives, but I didn't know anything about this until they've come back 3 years down the line for their retraining. And it's happened at some point in that last 3 years. So there's a lot of people that don't feel the need to get back in touch as well. But we do offer that. We'll support clients with a lot of schools getting back in touch because they've got a query over medication and individual healthcare plans for students. And what do we do about this? We've been given medication, but there's no plan. Talk to this person or this person. It might be we've got a policy on having a spare aspirin inhaler at school. Would you glance over it for us if you've got any suggestions of changes? We're looking at getting a defib. You know, what sort of things should we consider? Where should we put it? It might be our defib says it needs new pads. Where do I get them? It can be all sorts of random things linked with first aid. And we'll support our clients in that. And we'll do that all for free just because we want them to be able to do the best they can do, and their first aiders to have the stuff and the knowledge that they need. So there's all this extra stuff that goes on that doesn't really timetable as well, that just suddenly crops up here and there. And so my time is quite constantly all over the place in terms of time management.
Well, I think that's a really interesting point there, because there's this stuff, you know, going back to social media and like throwing, you know, giving away stuff for free. But there's also, that used to be customer service. And I feel like a lot of customer service stuff has kind of fallen off. And you know, like you're demonstrating there that you, like, you know, you've trained with us, you're part of our cohort, you know, you're like part, not the family, but, you know, that sort of thing of like, we're still here for you just because we've delivered for you. But, you know, you're supporting them afterwards with additional things and so on. And that's kind of a cost to you. You could charge for some of these things, but it's not about that. So, yeah, like how easy what's the question that I'm trying to get to here? So, like, I guess in terms of your price point, I mean, I would imagine that's bespoke as well. You tailor it for where you're going. So, you know, a big corporate would, I imagine, pay more. So it's standard across the board. Everyone's paying the same sort of thing.
We've got standard course prices for all the open courses. And then there's group rates for if you're getting us in for a group. And it's very much of a muchness. If you want a bespoke tailored course with a bespoke syllabus for a particular reason, that will be tailored according to what I'm doing. And if you're using mannequins, it's more expensive than if we're not, because we've got to sterilise them. So that's perfectly reasonable, I feel. If you are far out from our base in Leeds and you're further across Yorkshire, yes, there'll be a mileage charge because we've got to get to you. If you're way too far and you want a multi-day course, yes, thank you, you'll pay for a B&B overnight because that's also reasonable. So we're a lot cheaper than St John's and Red Cross. We're not the cheapest in the area. We're not the most expensive. We're probably somewhere in the middle or slightly higher than the middle. But you pay for the quality, you pay for the expertise, you pay for the fact that your kit is always sterilised before courses and that you're not reusing manky mannequins and things and stuff, you know, and there are people that will undercut us. And then people will come back and go, oh, we went with them, but actually it wasn't as good. Can we come back to you, you know, on the next thing down the line? So I think word of mouth is out there about the quality of the training that people get, about how confident people feel after they've trained with our team, which is what it's all about, really. It's about confidence to step up and make a difference if the need arises. So, yeah, sorry, have I gone off tangent?
No, that's perfect. I mean, it's... so it's back to the thing of people buy from people, and, not everyone's your client. And like, you're working in that area. I think one of the things that I'm thinking about in that is like with the price rate, the prices of everything going up in the last few years, like how was that to cope with? Like, did you try and hold out as long as possible, keeping your prices low, and then you're kind of like, well, at what point do I raise them? How much do I raise them? How much? Like, that's going to be one of the most difficult things to.
It is, yeah, and I struggle with it actually because I don't like charging people what they can't afford, but at the same time we've got to make a small profit, and we put in for an award. Our amazing admin Joanne, she puts in for the Yorkshire Business Awards, and just last week we were really privileged to be visited by 4 judges, which must mean we're worthy of judging. So I mean that in itself, if we get no further, is a really big honour, I feel. And one of the things we're looking at is community impact, one of the nomination categories, and one of their questions was, you've not predicted a very big jump in turnover for next year. I said, well, I don't want to promise the earth and then not deliver. And I also feel that this should be common knowledge, first aid knowledge. It kind of feels wrong charging an absolute massive amount, but maybe I'm undervaluing what we do. I don't know. And I know a lot of schools and a lot of smaller businesses, they're on really tight budgets at the moment as well. So I didn't put the paediatric course up last year because there's a big demand for that amongst schools, but the courses almost always fill.
Yeah.
But for some of the other courses that don't nearly always fill, yes, I eke them up maybe £10 on a price for a person. But that's not a lot when it hadn't gone up for a couple of years. And everything else has gone up. The certificate costs have gone up from the awarding bodies. The mannequin parts and consumables have gone up. The cleaning products we have to use have gone up. Our rent's gone up at the training room. There's the national insurance increase for staff.
Gas, electric,
as a
energy.
business owner, absolutely. So, I probably will have to eke things up a little bit again come next April, which is when we tend to review it. I never like doing it, but you just kind of have to get on with it and bite the bullet, really. But what we have done is we've got really strict on our policy for if people cancel at short notice. So if people, cancel with a couple of days notice and we're no way going to fill that space, our T's and C's are that, if you're within 2 weeks of the course, you pay for it.
Which is fair enough.
And if there's extenuating circumstances, I've been known to waive it, but we've had to get tough. Because when you've a course of 12 people booked and you run with 5 people, it just doesn't cover your staff. So before anything else. So that's probably what we've done more than hike prices, is get tough on the T's and C's.
I mean, is it fairly easy to kind of book, like to kind of fill what you need to fill in terms of, right, well, most slots that we need to fill are filled? Is that fairly easy to keep ticking over?
It is, but it's always a little bit of a guessing game, because when we're sort of scheduling courses for the year, I tend to work in academic years because that's what happens in a parent's head. And I always look back at 3 years ago, what's coming up for renewal, what's our likely projected, what have we got to refit in again? And then you'll make a little bit of a guess. So I got it quite wrong this autumn term. I'll hold my hands up. There was a guideline change came into schools about supervising students when they're actually eating. And I think it's come about because of a choking incident somewhere in the UK. And so all our paediatric courses you said, I'll throw an extra one in because there's lots of staff changes. I'll put an extra one to what we think we need. Everything filled. So I've had to schedule an extra 2 courses quite quickly because there just wasn't capacity. And I just guessed it wrong because I didn't know about this legislation update that was coming in. I'm sure that's where it's come from. So it is a little bit of a guessing game about what you need when you schedule. And then you're hoping that you manage to market and get the words out there and sort of get people in where they need to be. But we always do say, if you can't find a course that meets your needs, get in touch. Sometimes there's a way to accommodate someone on a different course and get the certificate they require. Sometimes we might have something running for a client that's technically closed, but they've got space and they're happy for an external person to join them. So there's usually a way to get around it.
Your business year, is there kind of peaks and troughs of when people, like, everyone loves to do first aid in this month or whatever, but not so much in this month? And
Employers hate sending people to do first aid or probably a lot of training in school holidays. And the reason is they've just got more staff off on annual leave, so they don't want to release other staff for training. And that's why it works so well for us to sort of quieten things down. And we'll never schedule open courses over the school holidays because we know we won't fill them. So we might go off to run an in-house course for a client, but I'll never put an open course on in a school holiday unless I've got several people come to me and said, could you? Or if I've got a group of maybe 6 or 7 wanting to do it, I say, well, okay, we'll put a course on for you. We'll host it and we'll stick it on the website and see if anyone wants to join you. But I won't usually schedule an open course for school holidays for that reason.
I mean, would there be, or have you done, is there any scope for sort of like a first aid boot camp through summer for kids? Because sometimes they'll do like the things for kids who aren't going on holiday, or take the pressure off parents, sort of thing.
It's an interesting one, actually, and it's something I did think about or have had thoughts about recently. And I think my small person's getting to the age where it's something that she could maybe be engaged in, because for me, that's always the balance, is what do I do with small person at the same time? And small person's declared that they don't enjoy doing such things as holiday clubs, and they would rather not. but then half the time they want to do their own thing. So you can't win as a parent, as you know, at times. So it's something I've had a little bit of a think about. And I was wondering about seeing if I could link in with maybe next year, not this coming year, but the year after, maybe link in with someone like Meanwood Valley Urban Farm. They do like a holiday play scheme project, but maybe see if I can link in with them and extend it in some way and deliver part of a first aid bit for them or something like that. That could be quite fun. So that there's lots of potential to do all sorts of other projects. There really is, but it's back to time, isn't it?
So on this, you still deliver courses? Yes, yourself. Would there be any could you pull away from that and go more working on the business, be full like CEO brain, I'm now in charge, I'm going to admin everything and we're going to build this up and deliver more? Or is delivery like a big part of it for you?
I could, but I enjoy the delivery. But what I have done over October through December is when we're scheduling all the open courses and things, most of those are divvied up between my team of trainers, not me. I'm running very few of the open courses. That leaves me to do some of the other stuff. So I tend to do the St Gemma's Hospice staff training. Not all of my staff have clinical backgrounds, and I wouldn't put anyone without a clinical background into a clinical setting. So I've got a few clinical clients I'll do. And then there's a couple of other things I'm doing, but mostly I've really downed my time so that I can work on the promotion of the Big Sick, Little Sick first aid for parents. I can get my social media sorted out and some of the marketing site things sorted out and start to look at some of the bigger projects and the other things that I've not had time to do. So it's a real deliberate choice to do that. There will no doubt be some last minute client requests for training. And if the team's available, I will throw them in their direction. And if they're not, I will probably cover those. And therefore, I'll get enough training in for keeping my brain happy with the variety, because that is... I've got this chemistry teacher in sixth form and she'd say, variety is the spice of life, girls. It was her catchphrase. But it does make life more interesting if no 2 days are the same. And if I'm just stuck behind a desk all the time, I think I'd go a little bit stir crazy as well. So I have deliberately done that so I can do that. We've also got our own first aid training manual, which I wrote with a colleague some years ago. I didn't like any of the awarding organisation ones out there. They either didn't have enough information for you to keep dipping into over your 3 years your qualification is valid, or they were just very, very vague, or loads of anatomy you don't need. So we wrote our own. And there's Resuscitation Council guidelines coming out in October. They come out every 5 years. So I'll be updating the manual as well, ready for using next year as well. So that's another project on my agenda for the autumn.
I mean, the Big Sick, Little Sick thing sounds like a really, like if you were going to niche down, like that would seem to be, to me, having done no market research on this whatsoever, not knowing anything, as like, oh, I've got an opinion on this. Like, but that seems like a really good key area and like something that you could really kind of, as you say, sort of delivering for parents and helping with parents and so on. But yeah, that and it's a good, like, it's already got a good, that's good branding, you know, like it sticks, it rings, there's something really strong in there, I think. Have you, I keep thinking of Leeds Baby Bank. Like, have you been down there? Like, that would seem like a great place to kind of...
I've not, and I should do. I really should. And it's really interesting you say that, because I've got a cousin who said she didn't like the phrase big sick, little sick.
It's brilliant.
It made her think of negative things. And I was like, well, you got big cook, little cook. Yeah. So, you know, it's got that ring. So I'm really pleased that you think it's got a bit of a ring, which is great. And I just literally come to the realization this last week that I think that's what I need to be pushing in the social media. Is the big sick, little sick. I think that is the niche for the social media. And I think I've been trying with my social media. Sorry, my phone's ringing in the landline. Do we just ignore that? Or do we pause the recording, or what do we do?
I can pause it if you want to get it, or do you think it's...
I don't know. You can probably hear it ringing on the sound, and then it'll be hard to cut out.
It's up to you. Do you want to get it?
Okay. Yeah, let me just tell her. Oh, you've just got the answer phone. Let them leave it to the answer phone, and then... We'll just let the answer phone do the thing, and then we'll backtrack to the question, if that's all right, or where we were, because I've lost my brain.
No, we were...
So I silenced the mobile, but not the landline.
Can you hear it? Can you hear the message?
I can. Yeah, I can hear it all doing its thing. Beep. Will they leave a message?
Doesn't sound like it.
Or is it about to beep? I would hear them if they're leaving a message. It's beeping. They're choosing not to leave a message. So I wonder if I can turn the ringer volume down, actually. Ringer volume. That might have done it, and it might not. Right. Well, we'll see. Let's have a swig, and then we'll start again, shall we? Where were we? What were we on about?
So big sick, little sick, and we're talking about Leeds Baby Bank.
Social media and stuff. Leeds Baby Bank. Yep. Are you recording it?
I didn't stop it. I just left it going. I'll cut it out.
Sorry. Yeah, Leeds Baby Bank, I think, would be something that's definitely on the list for me going down to visit. And yeah, I think it's the thing for social media. I think in social media, I've been trying to do too many things.
You need one message, don't you? Just like hammer one message over and over.
Myth-busting Mondays has been really popular, and that's something where I've been busting myths on different first aid things, and just about what the correct way to do things is on all sorts of different topics, including, funnily enough, that anyone can use a defib. That was in there. Nosebleeds, head forward, not back, all sorts of random stuff. And I think that's really popular. So I think if I just stuck with that and stuff on the parent first aid and just dovetail down to those two things, that's probably enough for the social media, rather than trying to do a bit of we're doing this, we're doing that, we're doing the other. And
I mean, you can throw those in occasionally. It's like to spice it up, but generally you want, like, it's that thing of I can't remember which way, but there's your sort of your big mainstream message of like, this is the thing all the time, and then there's I think it's your star messaging. It's ages since I've read any of this stuff, and then there's the little bits of just throw. You can see I'm really bothered about marketing. This is the
problem when you're a business owner. There's too many hats to wear, isn't there? And you can't learn the marketing and the HR and the accounts and the course delivery and the scheduling and the back office admin, and this is where I go wrong. There's just too many things to do.
Would you outsource anything? Have you ever tried?
I've outsourced my HR, which is absolutely brilliant and the best thing ever to do. And Tony is amazing. And the problem with outsourcing the marketing is finding somebody who's going to make the message us rather than make it really airy-fairy thingy. So it's one of the things to be looking at and considering, I think. But yeah, I'm gonna
throw in the UBI question, and then we can just natter about whatever and come back to various things. Are you familiar with universal basic income? Have you come across this before?
Yes, it's the concept, isn't it, that you've got a sort of, I think when I looked on the internet to just double check that I did understand it, I think they're quoting about £1,600 and something they'd piloted in Wales, I think, with, was it care leavers? Was that right?
They've done all sorts of different pilots, but yeah, 1,600 is one that on one of the pilots in the UK, I'm pretty sure. I mean, that would be great, I think. Yeah.
Well, I think it would up my income considerably, actually.
Well, it'd allow you to pay for, you know, whoever you wanted to do. Yeah.
It would allow me to outsource some of the stuff, which would be great. But yeah, I assume it would be prorated to people that were part-time. So if you work 2 days a week, you get 2/5 of it.
No, it's the whole point. It's universal. Everybody gets it. And it's a basic income. So everybody's getting the same amount. That's what it should be. And so automatically, it's very easy to think, well, what about London waiting? And my answer to that is, well, tough. They shouldn't live in London. So, but it's like, that's the point, is that everybody's getting this same amount and that it's regular, and that you can, you know, the fact that it's regular allows you to plan something with it. Because if all your money's tied up in other things, and the other thing that people think about is that it's going to put a limitation on how much you can work. Because we're all trained in means testing for benefits, aren't we? Of like, oh, well, if I earn this much, then I can't have this. And if I do too many shifts, then I'm paying too much tax and it's not worth it. And it's the sort of, it shouldn't affect that. It should go to everyone, and then they can decide what to do with it. And then ideally it sort of mixes things up a bit more. Obviously, this is not something that's been proposed. It's not something that's funded on a large scale. This is not something that's necessarily going to happen. I like to talk about it because I want to talk around money, and sort of like if money wasn't a factor, or if you could do other things, if you had that freedom, that's more what I'm looking at. And I want to promote the idea of UBI. But yeah, it's less about restricting you and it's more about freeing you up is the ideal from it.
Okay. I guess for me, if I had that in my pocket, there's a couple of things I could do with it. One is I could do my 4-day week, and then for my other day, I could do my random go off and do a session at Getaway Girls, or some community pond dipping at the farm, or some other random bits and pieces and stuff. Or I could outsource things like the social media or something, because there'd be some extra income to actually automatically do it without the business needing to earn it in a way. So certainly I don't pay myself that sort of amount currently. Hopefully as things get more improved and what have you, I probably could take a little bit more out of the business, but I always like to have that bit in reserve so that if we get to a big manual print run, we've got it in the bank. If we've got clients that are slow to pay, I can still pay the training team and the admin person. I never want to be sort of short, so probably got more in the bank than I need to, at a cost of actually not paying myself so much, if that makes sense. So there's probably some in there that I could draw out if I did need it. I'm sure there is, but I guess it would just free you up to do more with less. And people always talk about you needing a certain amount of income, and you do need a certain amount to pay your mortgage and your bills and have a roof over your head and eat. But I think a lot of people have a lot of very expensive luxuries that actually you don't need and you could get away without. And actually, if they thought about it carefully and budgeted, actually, they wouldn't need nearly as much as they think they do to live on. I think a lot of people get used to just stuff, and then that means you need more stuff.
Well, you spend adjust to your earnings, doesn't it? Like the more you earn, the more you spend because you can. And it's like, and the society is geared to that as well in terms of, all right, well, I'm a millionaire now, so what do? Oh, well, I just buy more expensive watches, cars, dresses, suits, shoes. So you're still buying the same sort of stuff. You're just buying it at a higher price tag.
Absolutely. And, and maybe I'm not particularly money minded because I'm not someone who, needs the new biggest, best thing or whatever else. And I'll run my car into the ground because I like my car. And when it's getting to the stage where, it's not going to be very good anymore, I'll get a new to me car and, I'll run that one into the ground. I got brought up to use and recycle and to try and look after the planet and all those sorts of things and trying to be sustainable with what you do. So we try and do that as much as we can with business as well. And it's just what we do. Unfortunately, you said anaphylaxis, one of your favourite words. I've got a nut and peanut allergy. So I've chosen not to fly because I've had 2 allergic reactions on flights. So we don't do big expensive holidays abroad. We holiday in the UK. We've been recently on ferries to places like the Isle of Wight, the Isle of Man, which is beautiful. Love to go back. But actually, you can get just as nice a holiday here. We're not spending thousands and thousands on that. So you just live within your means, don't you? And you get on with it.
Yeah, I think so. I've banged on about this a few times. I think a lot of it's more about as a climate response as well, that people should be working a lot less, people should be resting a lot more. And I think that UBI is part of that equation for me of because one of the things in the pilots is that health outcomes improve because people are around more. So accidents in the home, if someone falls in the home or whatever, and someone's at home more, you've got that first aid response, you've got someone that's there quicker, and it's not like, how many of us have relatives that have spent a day on a floor somewhere, like elderly relatives that spent a day on a floor somewhere because they've fallen and they couldn't get anyone, and so those kind of things are reduced, and general accidents are reduced. People have more time, so they pay a bit more attention to what they're doing. They're rushing around less, those kind of things. People start more businesses, which as well, you could potentially have more customers out of it. The other side as well, though, is that if you're giving all this money out, the general trend of money is that you all get sucked to where the money is. So, but for me, we need something to put cash in people's pockets. And I can't think of a better way to do that at the moment. There's the flip side of disabled people will have more expenses naturally and so on. So they might need more. But then hopefully if people are more community minded, then that kind of brings those expenses down. So, it would be crazy. It would be it would change so many things. It would be really interesting to see. It might go terribly wrong. But also, it doesn't have to be there forever. Do you know what I mean? It could be something like, right, we're going to do 5 years of this, and then after that, and maybe it could be tied to whatever citizenship kind of scheme that you wanted to do. Of you only get it if you've got a passport or whatever. But again, that's not for us to decide. But I think it's just a really interesting thing to think about and talk about.
I think the mental health aspect that you mentioned is actually really interesting, about people having more time. And, there's been so much evidence, haven't there, lately about the effects of anxiety and depression through burnout, through work and
loneliness
overworking.
And isolation as well.
Absolutely. And that's huge for so many people. And that's why after COVID was such a big issue as well, wasn't it, for so many people in really isolated households as well. So it does make a massive difference. I'm really lucky where I live because, and where I work, we've sited our training room on Meanwood Valley Urban Farm because our rent actually pays directly into the charity, which is a fantastic thing rather than giving some big corporate lots of money. But I'm regularly bumping into local people from the community who just come onto the farm, and I could name a whole load of them by name, but won't because of, I don't know who they'll know from this podcast that might be watching. And, just say hi to people from the community and just pass the time of day and have a chat. And it's wonderful just to have that connection. And it's wonderful mental health and well-being.
And it's vital for you as well. It's that thing of, because we're social creatures, we're social animals, part of our health and well-being is community, however you want to think of that, but just being social, being around other people, and that improves our well-being. It's also a nightmare as well because, it's people. But it is really good for us, and you notice that. Like I've noticed it in myself of, being stuck in here for too long, and a large part of this was meant to be going out and doing various bits. But like I said to you before, so much of it has been about just do it, do the work, get the work done and get it out. But the social part's so important. And I think that, I think UBI again is part of that equation of creating a more cohesive society. Because for me as well, it's like, what is the country? What you pay your tax. What are you paying for? It seems like I pay for bailouts and for bombs. Where is the community? Where is the being part of something? And I think something like that would be really socially cohesive. So I'm a big advocate, obviously. I show my biases quite easily. Yeah, is there anything else you want to say on that before we move on to something?
No, it's interesting, and it's something that I just never really thought about until you asked the question. So it's a very interesting concept.
It's a good thing to ask people about. Like years ago, I've said this on the podcast before, but I used to ask people, if money was no object, what would you do? And the most common answers I got from people was travel or go back to school, like further study. And because if we're not working, we want to we want to learn, and it's not necessarily consumption, like we're trained of like, oh, buy more stuff, get a better car, get a bigger house, get a sort of thing. And we're kind of socially expected to say that. But I think what people really want is more experiences, better experiences. And yeah, I think that's what we crave really. Of like, we want to know the world, and we want to be in the world, and we want to know the world, and we want to be part of the world. And that's, when I started this, I was under the sort of British work ethic thing of everyone hates their job at Monday. It's crap working here, isn't it? Yeah, it's rubbish. And every single person I spoke to is like, I love my job. I love working. Maybe that's just because they're being recorded on a thing talking about their work, but I don't think that's the case. I think most people, like, I think you love your job. I think you love doing what you're doing. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing it. So, yeah, I think we're missold this idea of we're all miserable and we're not interested. And I think we're not miserable and we are interested, and we're very curious, and we want to be part of stuff, and we want to help, and we want to be involved. So, yeah, again, I'll let you respond to any of that.
It's really interesting because, when you mentioned that people talk about going back to further study, keep learning is one of the NHS 5 ways to wellbeing. If you're going back to mental health support, so connection and keep learning, two of the really key themes, giving your time, your presence, your thanks to people, being part of the community, mindfulness, the other big thing. And the final one, the fifth one, of course, being active, getting out in nature and doing stuff. And quite often that's doing stuff with people in the community. Yeah. So these are all the things that boost our well-being. And, it's really interesting because if that universal basic income did enable people to achieve those 5 things, then maybe we wouldn't have so much poor mental health and well-being. Maybe the NHS would be in less of a state because there'd be less demand. As you say, if that person at the home that's fallen on the floor isn't on the floor for as long because there's someone there, then again, less NHS stay. So that there's all sorts of, potential benefits to it. It's a very interesting concept.
So we've got a bit of time left. Before I do the other bits of talking about whatever, I'm just going to ask you to give us your socials. So where can people find you?
We're on quite a few social things. So we are on LinkedIn, Helen Underwood at LinkedIn, or Underwood Training on LinkedIn. We're on Facebook as Underwood Training, and we're also on Instagram as Underwood First Aid. And we've got a YouTube channel of Underwood Training as well. And if you would like, I can send you a link tree through if that is helpful.
Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes. So yeah.
Amazing.
I feel like I'm going
to put myself a little note.
There it is. There's the cough. So at this point, I'm just going to say, is there anything that you want to revisit, anything that you haven't talked about or haven't had a chance to discuss that you'd like to throw in here? It doesn't have to be, but yeah, if there's anything that you want to discuss, now is the time to do so. So over to you.
I just think that if more employers can get it into their heads that the more employees that are trained in first aid, the better, rather than going for them a minimum number that you legally require, that would be totally awesome. Because then they're actually investing in their employees' well-being, because it's not just about doing first aid in the workplace, it's about supporting them and their families out in the community. And you never know whether it's you that's going to need that help, a member of your staff, or whether they're going to bump into your granny or your aunt at the supermarket who's just collapsed. Just the more people we can train, the better. And, if you've got employees who've got kids, gift them the first aid for parents, and bosses, you could buy it for them. And then you've got more people with a bit of first aid knowledge out there, which actually is just going to boost support for your existing first aiders, but make your staff think that you're really investing in them as well. And that's got to be good for well-being as well.
Yeah, stuff the pizza parties and, for your Christmas bonuses and so on, or the Christmas presents this year. You want a new gift idea? First aid training.
Gift of life. Absolutely.
So I'll do a quick bit. So I said I wanted to pick your brains a bit about the outdoor pursuits stuff.
Please do.
So what's your, are you kind of into it all? Are you, what was the thing that inspired the interest? Was it just growing up in Yorkshire and wandering around the hills, or was there a particular kind of adrenaline junkie part of you that you're like, I need to throw myself off cliffs and, go in whitewater?
Well, actually, I grew up in Kent,
Okay.
which is relatively flat, apart from the White Cliffs of Dover. And the first time I ever saw a mountain, I was 14 when I went on a school trip to Wales. So there you go. So I didn't grow up in Yorkshire, but my neighbour, who is very Yorkshire, says I am now honorary Yorkshire because I've lived here long enough.
Yeah.
Okay, just so you know. So when I moved up to Yorkshire, there was some people I became friends with. And there's this one guy called Rob who was really into climbing. And he said, you need to come to the climbing wall. I said, I don't like heights. And he said, oh, you're coming climbing, because he wanted this other girl called Kate to come climbing. And she would only go if someone else went. So I basically got taken climbing because he wanted someone so that this girl he fancied would come. They're now married with kids, by the way. So this is a long while ago. And I got part way up this slab and I went, that's high enough. You can let me down now. And he went, no, you're not coming down till you've got to the top. And he's a big lad and he'd sat on the rope and he got it locked and he would not letting me down till I got to the top. I was like, no, but seriously, let me down now. He's like, no, get to the top, then I'll let you down. And so I had to get to the top. And I got to the top, really don't like heights. Then he lowered me off nice and gentle like, and I got such an adrenaline buzz because I'd actually done something and actually pushed beyond my comfort zone, and I kind of got hooked on climbing. And through someone else that I knew, I started doing a lot of hill walking with them and a group of people. I just loved being outdoors, loved being in nature. Gradually made other friends in Leeds through the climbing world and started doing a bit of outdoor climbing with them as well. Super scary. I have to confess, I'd kind of prefer to be the second one up and for someone else to have put the gear in. I'll do an odd lead, but my head's kind of gone now, my parent, because the risk of breaking myself badly is just, it's really quite high impact now. And yeah, I just got real buzz for it. So yeah, when I went up to do the year in Scotland, I think I'd done no canoeing, no kayaking at all before I went up there. I'd done a bit of hill stuff. I'd done a bit of rock climbing. I might have done an archery on a youth camp maybe once, when you get to play the bows and arrows. So there's a lot of stuff I just hadn't done, but it just seemed like a really good year to just have a complete and utter break after the absolute head mess of the NHS as it was at the time. But that's what happens when you get really senior in the clinical and you're working in the really acute areas and you haven't got proper support. And at the time I was carrying vacancies in the grade underneath myself, so there was no middle level. I was doing up to a 12-day stretch with in intensive care with the weekend work cover, not seeing daylight for 12 days in winter, having 3 overnight on calls in that period as well. It just wasn't great in terms of burnout at all. And you can see how it happened. So just completely cut the slate clean, run away to Scotland for 12 months and just see some most amazing scenery. Be on a course of 12 of us who basically lived in each other's pockets for a year, doing all sorts of mad stuff and wild camping and biking. And it was great. Only one drawback, and that's that the Scottish midges think I'm tasty, but can't have everything. But, canoeing out on the loch with seals popping up to say hello, and it was just awesome.
Your phone's ringing again.
It is, and I don't know how to shut it up, and I don't know who it is, and I'll just have to ignore it.
Okay, so I want to ask quickly, and then I'm going to close it off. I want to ask quickly about the ski season. So how was that? Did you get out on the slopes, and where were you?
I was in Lauterbrunnen in Switzerland. Okay. It was 6 months. So it's the entire season. I was lead cook for a massive big hostel that had up to 125 people in it. Our fullest week being at New Year of Millennium, believe it or not. And yeah, I managed to do my first ever first aid course just before we went out in the ski season because they had one for their ski instructors and there was a spare place. So I bagged it because I was going out for the season and discovered that actually I knew most of it already. And I did most of the first aid because people would limp back to where we were and the ski instructors would still be on the slopes, burning up the runs with their skis right until food was on the table. So, yeah, we sadly had a few guests that we had to hospitalise with various breaks and things over the season. But I got I had worked for 3 weeks and had the 4th week off. So I got to ski every 4th week for free. And I got 1 day off each week I was working also with free ski pass and skis. So I think I got paid £20 a week, board, lodging, ski pass and skis.
I mean,
it wasn't bad.
You're not there for
it
the
paid
pay,
for toiletries pretty much. So I was absolutely knackered at the end of it. I'd lost over a stone. I was super fit. I was completely muscle and completely knackered. But it's a really good experience. And I made some amazing friends that visited as guests. And a couple of them I'm still in touch with today, many years on. So, yeah, it's a fantastic experience.
Yeah, excellent things to do. Right, I'm going to wrap it up there because someone's obviously trying to get hold of you.
Yeah, it's probably another somebody who's done something or other, but I'll investigate in a minute. Or it's another cold call. We get a few of those.
Yeah,
So.
it's probably a computer saying, hello, I'm a real person, buy my thing.
Hello, you spent £600 on Amazon.
Right, well, thank you very much for doing this, Helen. It's been brilliant talking to you.
No, thank you. It's been a real pleasure, Simon. It really, really has.
And I wish, brilliant luck for the future. And I urge all my viewers, go and get some first aid training. And if I get some money, I might come and do it myself. So
we'll just have you along just for fun.
We could do that as well. Thank you again to Helen for being my guest. Thanks, as always, to all my guests. And thank you to you, Leeds, for being my subject. If you'd like to get in touch with Helen or find out more about Underwood Training, go to Linktree, linktr.ee/Underwood Training, or LinkedIn, linkedin.com/in/Helen Underwood, Instagram, instagram.com/Underwood Training First Aid. So that's a 1 ST and aid. Facebook, facebook.com/Underwood.training First Aid, again with the number 1 and an ST following it and the word aid. And YouTube, youtube.com/@Underwood Training 5923. Please consider donating to this project. If you're listening to this on the Captivate player, you can just hit the donate button on the player you're using, and that will take you straight to this show's Ko-fi page, where you can donate any amount that you would like or that you can afford. Donations will help me with the costs and labour for this episode, what you just listened to, and everything else to do with working hours. Anything you can and do donate will be a massive help. Patreon or Patreon memberships start at £6 a month. That's less than the price of anything you'd buy an hour of in the real, and I'm giving you hours of local historical content each month. £6 is basically a craft beer a month for all this content. So go to patreon.com/C4Creative/working hours pod. I haven't given up on this. I just need to stop trying to make and deliver this project the way I have been, as I have said before, and I also need to attend to other parts of the project, specifically curation and marketing. I also need to get some real paid work for myself. Again, I've said this before, because I can't justify making this show at a loss to me anymore, and I need paid work just so I can have some sort of life. Don't forget the Western Studios brand is a podcast making business. I edited the audio and video for all but 1 episodes of the Leeds Business Podcast for Phil Fraser, and have edited all of the For the Love of Costs podcast episodes for Clarion Solicitors in Leeds. If you're based in West Yorkshire and have a podcast project you'd like some support with, and you don't have unlimited funds to make your podcast, then get in touch with me to see how I can help you. You can be a group of people, an SME, a public service, or a charity. There's more information about Western Studios in the credits of this episode. So if you're still here now, stay till the end to hear all about that. If you'd like to contact me about anything working hours related, then you can email me about this show at workinghourspod@western-studios.com. Okay, that's me. Remember, listener, no matter what you do, it is impossible for you to understand anything that your salary depends on you not understanding. So try to work for peace and try to plan with kindness. Raise your voice, but reduce your impact. Cheers, ears. Take care out there, and do be kind to each other, Leeds. Working Hours is produced, recorded, edited, created and published by Simon Treen for Western Studios Leeds Limited. The music was The Bees from Chopin's Etudes, which is in the public domain and was taken from museopen.org. Remember Western Studios Leeds Limited when you're ready to start making your content in West Yorkshire. Follow Western Studios Leeds on Facebook, facebook.com/Western_Studios_Leeds, and on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/company/Western-Studios. Bookmark western-studios.com so you can see the latest prices and use my contact page to drop me a message about your own podcast project or working hours at any time from anywhere. Maybe you want or need a podcast host, co-host or narrator for your podcast project. Maybe you just need another voice for one or more episodes of your show. Podcasts are so much more than gossip, book promotions and marketing for online courses. Podcasts and other audio content get your online brand out there. Want to make some fundraising case studies? Want to have an audiobook or video course? Want to share your learning, knowledge and expertise in your field? Want to learn, teach or raise awareness of something general or particular? Want to improve internal comms with messages your staff might actually engage with? Or do you just want to brighten up the world with some entertaining content? Then make a podcast. If you're making your podcast within West Yorkshire, then think about making it with western-studios.com. Whatever your podcast questions or needs, get in touch with Western Studios Leeds.